some say the Power Macintosh is a completely dead platform. You're either stuck with a decades-old version of macOS, or struggling to run some semblance of Linux. You know, the fun kind of struggling. Well, today we're installing MorphOS, a modern alternative operating system that treats the Power Macintosh as a first-class citizen. So stay tuned. And if you enjoy going to great lengths to keep using your very old computers, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. MorphOS is an interesting project with kind of a wild history. For all intents and purposes, it's a continuation of the Amiga OS. Without context, it seems kind of crazy. But if we go back to the late 90s, it makes more sense. In the dark days after the demise of Commodore, the Amiga platform was left in limbo, but third parties kept the platform alive with accelerators. So in 1999, along came MorphOS, which was released as a next-generation operating system for PowerPC accelerated Amigas. But accelerating a platform from the early 90s can only take one so far. So to keep the Amiga platform alive, a new PowerPC computer had to be targeted. Something more recent. And thus, MorphOS doesn't just modernize old PowerPC Macs, it transforms them into up-to-date Amigas, which is wild. So today, we're going to install the latest version of MorphOS onto two of my all-time favorite Macs, my upgraded iMac G5 iSight, and I have this beautiful, completely stock G4 Cube to see how it runs on something a bit more constrained. Right after this quick word about today's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is a one-stop solution for all of your PCB assembly and fabrication needs. Whether you're just prototyping or building a production run of your project, PCBWay can handle literally everything. PCB prototyping starts at just $5 for 10 pieces, with as little as a 24-hour turnaround, and nearly limitless options for your project. From 3D printing to CNC machining, fabrication, and every type of PCB that you can imagine. If you don't fancy soldering, they even offer PCB assembly, which starts at just $29 for 1 to 20 pieces. This low pricing and ease of ordering has made PCBWay the preferred vendor for so many in the retro community for years. So if you have any PCB or prototyping needs, I hope you'll give PCBWay.com a try. Man, this iMac G5 is so frickin' good. A 2.1 gigahertz 64-bit G5, and I've got 2 gigs of RAM in this thing. All right, power on. Help if I plugged it in. Hold down Option, and we'll chuck in our MorphOS 3.19 install disk. Upon first boot, we get a lovely graphical interface. Man, I love that red cursor. And then, like many a modern Linux distro, we are dumped into a lovely live environment, complete with theme song. However, MorphOS has nothing to do with Linux. It is entirely its own thing. Super lightweight on resources, super responsive, and also not open source. I do have some thoughts about that, but we'll talk about that more later. All right, so we'll do a new install, US English, found the video card. I ask about the key map, key repeat rate, interesting. It does see the Wi-Fi card, but I have this plugged into Ethernet. We strongly recommend using the automatic installation mode when installing MorphOS for the first time. Well, if you say so, that's what I'll do. All right, well, install successful. Give me that. And we'll reboot this thing into its fresh install and see what Amiga OS is really like. Okay, so apparently it doesn't automatically boot. Let's restart this and hold down Option for a boot picker. Yeah, there it is, our install of MorphOS. Easy enough to go into Open Firmware and update it to boot automatically. In fact, library.morph.zone has instructions for doing just that. Now, the developers of MorphOS were kind enough to provide me with a key file so we can register this install and we won't have any time limits. So we just need to put the key file under the devs folder. Like so. Oh yeah, there we go. I am officially registered. Now the other thing I've put on this USB stick is Chrysalis. And I know about Chrysalis thanks to one of my all-time favorite YouTube channels, Dan Wood. He does a lot of Amiga stuff, and it's actually where I found out about MorphOS. And Dan Wood's channel is actually most of the inspiration for me starting my YouTube channel, and super nice guy. So I will definitely link Dan Wood down below. So the Chrysalis pack has all sorts of stuff like themes, additional applications. We're going to discover it together because I have no idea how it works. All right, install complete. Well, we have a cool dock now. These are things we can add to the top bar. CPU gauge, thermal, video memory. Oh yeah, we now have a ton of stuff on here from that Chrysalis pack. Look at all this emulation stuff, games. Let's see if we can pick a cool background here. Oh yeah, well we have to go with the cool butterfly background, obviously. All right, I've set up my shortcuts panel here on the side with a collapsible dock, and I really quite like that. Now we can customize this desktop even further if we go into settings and MUI, click on ambient here. Look at all of these options we have for window decorations. We can see a little preview down here. Some of these are quite nice. Some of them are a little bit out there. There is a nostalgia one, which is meant to imitate the original Amiga OS, which, yeah, look at that. That's quite tasteful. Though I really quite like this Nox 2, which is a dark theme that's also kind of reminiscent of Windows Aero. Now, in my opinion, one of the biggest selling points for MorphOS on an old Power Mac is Wayfarer, the built-in modern WebKit-based web browser that works shockingly well. I mean, check this out. We can go to YouTube, and we have this set to use the mobile version of YouTube because that's much more lightweight, but still, watch how well this performs. Yeah, let's check out Dan Wood's channel here. Man, look how well this scrolls. Can you believe this is a 20-some-odd-year-old iMac G5? Apparently, the new 2024 Spectrum is full of surprises. Let's find out. Look, that is playing perfectly. Amazing. We've got a ton of stuff from that Chrysalis pack installed, including emulation like MGBA, where I can play all of my favorite weird Pokemon ROMs. How about Mariomon? That's right, the Super Mario Bros. Themed Pokemon ROM hack. Oh yeah, it doesn't get much weirder than this. Look, I'm Mario. And it's playing Super Mario Bros. 3 music. Now this is art. I don't care what you think. We also have Basilisk 2, so we can run our cool macOS applications like Shufflepuck, which is going to run way too fast because this is a G5 iMac. And I have been chatting a bit in the MorphOS Discord. I asked them if someone had ever tried to compile Classic Cube for MorphOS, and in fact, someone has. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work, but man, this would be the absolute dream. Classic Cube running with sound in MorphOS. I bet it would run amazing. And we also have an early version of Cube 2 Sauerbraten ported over to MorphOS, which runs shockingly well. If we want to get some FPS time in. But I would love to see the modern version of Sauerbraten ported over with music, and maybe it already exists. If you know about it, let me know down in the comments below. Alright, so that iMac G5 was one of the fastest Power Macs that you can run MorphOS on. Let's try it on one of the slowest. This is my Power Mac G4 Cube. Instead of a 2.1 GHz G5, it is a 450 MHz G4. Instead of 2 gigs of RAM, there are 768 megabytes. This thing still has the original spinning hard disk instead of an SSD. Oh, and this thing has no cooling fan in it. It is completely convection cooled. Oh, and big thanks to TJ for selling me your beautiful blue and white Mac LCD. I've been looking for one of these things for frickin' ever. Look how beautiful this thing is. Yeah, let's install the Chrysalis pack on this thing as well, which I dare say will take a bit longer to install than last time. Well, apparently Chrysalis pack does not want to install on here. Something called Hollywood Player says that we've crashed. And I've tried that twice now, so I'm giving up on Chrysalis pack. I do think we can still change some stuff in here. Let's see if we can get the old Knox going. Yeah, there's Knox, but we don't have as many choices. Thankfully, we still have the original version of Knox. I really has to think about something. Huh. IPRefs is trying to reopen the ambient screen. All right. I think it's calmed down. Yeah, there we go. Oh, it looks great on here. Look at that. Well, of course, we still have our wonderful web browser, Wayfarer. Can it run in under a gigabyte of RAM? Oh, it can. Look at that. Good old Wayfarer. How does this handle a somewhat modern site like old.reddit.com? Oh, look at that. Old school Reddit is totally usable. How about the horrible new Reddit? Which is much heavier and more bloated and more terrible. Oh, that is shockingly good. And it froze. Well, I'm slightly concerned that the problem was heat, so I've unglamorously chucked some USB fans on here. We'll see if that prevents any future freezing. Oh, just look at that beautiful splash screen. Alright, let's try to update Wayfarer. I've downloaded the new version. Chuck that in. And nope, it froze. Totally froze. Okay, so I have to be honest here. I've kind of fallen in love with MorphOS. For many of the same reasons I love BOS and Haiku. It's elegant, it's simple, it's classic, it feels like operating systems and computers did back in the 90s, but it's modern. And Wayfarer is just such a good web browser. Now, we have to address the fact that this is not free and open source software. And frankly, I'm fine with it. I don't think all projects have to be given away for free. When you look at things like independent games, even games for retro and classic systems, we're fine with paying for those. But when it's a different kind of software, like an operating system, I think it's unfair that we treat developers of non-game software differently. If someone wants to make a business out of supporting legacy hardware and they do it well, that's amazing. I love it. Granted, there are some things about the commercial aspect of this I don't love. For example, I think the trial limitations are a little heavy-handed. The system will actually slow down after 30 minutes of use on the unregistered version, when I think it would be much better to do something like putting a big heavy watermark or nagware or something on it. Even me personally, I think I would need a few days of use of an operating system to determine whether I should daily drive it instead of just 30-minute increments. But I have to give a huge thank you to the MorphOS community, the Discord, the developers for being so friendly and accommodating, and for giving me 2 free keys to register 2 of my systems to continue to play with. And I'm going to keep MorphOS on these 2 systems. I know it had some trouble here on the Cube. I don't know if that's a fault of the Cube or a fault of the software. I'd like to actually swap an SSD into this thing and max out the RAM, so I know that's not the issue. And if you feel up to the challenge of trying to get Classic Cube compiled for these systems, leave me a note down in the comments below. In any event, that'll do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more stuff like this, please subscribe down below. And thank you very much for watching. And I just want to give a very special thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and channel members. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for supporting me and supporting this channel and all the weird stuff I do. I am so very grateful, and I just could not do this without you.